kind of get a sense that truth seems to be the overarching theme of the letter. Okay, so the big lessons that we'll see in this are all going to revolve around truth and what comes out of truth, what comes from truth. It all kind of rolls back into that. So let's just take this right from the top. Again, it's not very big, so we'll just handle the kind of what's in it. Right from the top, let's read down a little ways. I hope you can see that. 2 John verses 1 through 3. John says the elder, so he references himself as the elder, spiritual leader. The elder to the elect lady and her children, that would be to the church, okay, whom I love in truth. And not only I, but also all who know the truth, for the sake of the truth which abides in us and will be with us forever. Grace, mercy, and peace will be with us from God the Father and from Jesus Christ, the Son of the Father, in truth and love. So you see there, he uses the word truth 4 times just in those verses there. 3 verses. So this is where John's mind is at. John's mind is on truth. He loves in truth. He talks about people who know the truth. And that right there is actually going to serve as our first big lesson. Okay, first big lesson. Lesson number 1, truth is exclusive. If you notice, he's kind of speaking about this in very exclusive terms. You see, in John's mind, he understands quite well that there is no other truth other than the truth that you will find in Jesus. Now, he didn't just come up with that on his own. Okay, you remember, this is John we're talking about. This is John the Apostle, John who walked with Jesus. Okay, he and the rest of the apostles. So this is the same John that records Jesus saying this right here. Remember John 14:6, when Jesus said to them all, as he's up in the upper room talking to them before he goes out and before everything gets going, right? John records Jesus saying, look, I'm the way, and I am the truth, and I'm the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. So he knows exactly what he's saying, and he very much understood what that meant. He does not see, John does not see truth as if there are many truths, and he doesn't say that. He says, he sees it as just one, and that's how he speaks about it. Now today, and especially in the world of Christianity, I think a lot of times people somehow still get that confused. For whatever reason, some people today, they don't see that, or they can't seem to accept that. This idea of there being only one truth. One objective truth that there is to follow. In a lot of people's minds, if you say that there is only one, and that there is no other way to get to God or have salvation, a lot of people would look at you and say, well, you're pretty narrow-minded for thinking that way. That's a pretty narrow-minded way to think. I mean, how could you think that Jesus, who is all about love, as they say, would not and does not accept everybody? I mean, those are some fighting words today for a lot of people. I mean, the moment that you suggest that there's just one way and there's one truth or in one church and all of that, people take offense at that pretty quick. Okay, and I don't know, the best thing that I can come up with, I guess, as to why some people cannot seem to wrap their minds around that is because, well, number one, they feel like that's offensive. Okay, that's very offensive for you to say such a thing. Okay, or it's not loving for you to say such a thing. Okay, and I really think one of the biggest reasons as to why they may think that is just they haven't read that. They haven't read it. They haven't laid their own eyes on these things for themselves. Because, look, when you have a straightforward reading of the New Testament, and you just take it at face value and you read it honestly, without somebody in your ear, you don't come away with this idea that there's all kinds of different truths and many different truths, and you can have your own truth. You don't come away with that from a straightforward reading of Scripture. Okay, that is not what the Scriptures say at all. Over and over again, Scripture reiterates this oneness theme and idea of truth. Okay? Never do you see it being in the plural, as if there are many different kinds of truths that you can follow. Never do you see the Bible writers talking about it as if it is subjective and just left up to an individual interpretation. Never do you see it spoken of in those terms. The Bible writers knew that truth was exclusive and only God had the truth, and they knew that Jesus had it because they knew He came from God. And they defended that. They defended that to their deaths, dying because of the truth. Whether people agree with it or not doesn't change the fact that it's still there. Doesn't change the fact that there's still just one, whether people agree with that or not, or believe it or not. Okay, but people need to understand that truth is exclusive, and that is what the Scriptures teach. Now, inclusive in that, yes, everybody can come to it, but it's very much exclusive in that there is just one. Okay, now, the second thing that we see with what he says about truth comes in verse number 2. Okay, he says, "For the sake of the truth which abides in us and will be with us forever." So, big lesson number 2 that I saw in this: truth must abide in us. It is not enough just to know that there is an exclusive truth that exists. It is good to know, absolutely. It is good to know, it is good to understand that, but more importantly, that truth also needs to move beyond just knowing it. It needs to abide in us. It needs to abide in us. It's not going to do any good if it doesn't ever get to that step. Okay? Now, this word here, abide, that you see, this is one of John's favorite words. If you've ever studied John, you've seen this word a lot. One of John's favorite words, along with the word truth. He uses that one a lot too. But John uses this word abide. He actually uses it 20 times in his gospel, the Gospel of John. He uses it 20 times there. 26 times he uses this word abide in his first letter, 1 John, and his second letter. So this one here that we're looking at. 26 times in those two short letters. So a total of, and actually he uses it 3 times just here in these 13 verses. So a total of 46 times John the Apostle uses this word, abide. He really likes this word. Okay? But what does he mean by that? Abide. Well, the word abide, it means to remain. It means to stay. It means to reside with. Okay, so in terms of this exclusive truth that we're talking about, it must remain with us. Okay, it must stay with us. It must reside with us. It must live with us. That's the point. And this is what has to go with and be with a Christian at all times and everywhere we go. Truth has got to live with you. Truth has got to reside with you, abide with you. That's what it means. That's what he's getting at. Okay? It cannot be truth, this truth that we are to have, it cannot be something that is picked up every once in a while. Okay? It can't be just picked up every once in a while. It can't be practiced on occasion, lived out only some of the time, barely thought about, never thought about. No, if we're going to be disciples of Christ, His truth must live within us. It must abide with us. I mean, this is a non-negotiable here with Christians. No ifs, ands, or buts. Non-negotiable thing. If we are going to follow Jesus, His truth must be present within us at all times. Non-negotiable. Okay? And if it is, what's that going to do? Well, it's going to shape us, if it is. And we should let it shape us. That would be a good thing. Because when it lives in us, it affects things. It affects things like our decisions. That's a big one. Okay, the truth affects our decisions, because when we know the truth of things and we know what Jesus would have us do, it can help us make a decision that's right and the one that we should make if His truth is in you. Because Jesus' truth lives within me, look, honesty is going to win the day. All right? Because Jesus' truth lives within me, if I'm ever faced with a decision to compromise that truth, it ain't going to happen. It's not going to happen if it lives within me. If I'm faced with temptation, I'm not going to give in. When teachings or doctrines come along and someone's trying to teach me or tell me something different, I'm going to know better if His truth is in me. Okay? When the truth abides in us, decisions that we make will also be more in line with what God wants and less about what we want. Truth must abide in us because it has an effect on everything about us. It directs our steps. It controls our speech. It controls how we think, what we teach, parenting, marriage, leadership in our congregations, all that stuff. Okay? It completely controls the life that we live as people who are trying to follow Jesus. Now, look what he says in verse 4. He says, I rejoiced greatly to find some of your children walking in truth, just as we receive commandment from the Father. So, it is very much a good thing to have this truth abide with us and walk in it. And you know what? If John, an apostle, is saying that, hey, this is something to rejoice over, you walking in truth, I think it's safe to say that this is something that God would rejoice over. If John the Apostle is saying it, I think God would say that, and He would rejoice over it, greatly rejoice over it. To find His children walking and living in the truth. Kind of goes back to Paul's petition right there in Ephesians chapter 1 that we've already talked about on the Sunday mornings. When he talks about Christians walking worthy of the calling with which they've been called, or maybe it would kind of go with what Jesus talked about in Matthew chapter 24 when He talked about the faithful and the prudent slave. Okay, he says, who then is the faithful and prudent slave whom his master put in charge of his household to give them their food at the proper time? Look what he says, blessed is that slave whom his master finds so doing when he comes. That's kind of the idea. Okay, the idea is when the master comes back and he sees that you're working and you're doing what you're supposed to do, that is rejoiceful news. The master is pleased. God is pleased with those things. Look, may God be greatly pleased with us and rejoice at the sight of us walking in the truth and having it abide with us. I want God to be proud of me. I want God to rejoice over me for walking in the truth, don't you? Yeah. Got to walk in it. It's got to abide with us. I want to please God. I want my Father to be happy with me. Now, that truth that is supposed to abide within us also should cause us to do something else that John speaks about a lot, and that is love one another. Okay? That's big lesson number 3. Love must be toward one another. Okay? Now, many times the disciple whom Jesus loved, John, spoke about one of the first commandments from Jesus that they had heard from the very beginning. This one here, love one another. Jesus reiterated this many times when He spoke about love. You know, He even talked about, hey, first, you've got to have a desire to love God, and you also need to have that desire to love your neighbor. Everything He said practically hangs on love. Okay? Even the two greatest commandments revolve around that. Jesus spoke about this. John spoke about this. Paul spoke about this. Peter spoke about this. Every one of them. They spoke very highly on love. Okay? They understood this. So how could we not, be all about it if they were? Okay? And to John, this is something that he sees as one of the most important things for Christians to do. Love one another and walk in that. If there's any lesson for someone that wants to be a Christian and follow Jesus, hey, this has to be at the top of the list. Okay? Anybody that wants to be a Christian, this is back to like some of that discipleship 101 stuff. You got to love one another. Okay? John 13, in verse 15, Jesus said there, by this, all will know that you are my disciples. By what? If you have love for one another. Okay? It's one of the marks. It's one of the marks that says we are a disciple of Jesus. Okay? When our love extends to one another, to each other. It's an identifying mark, if you will. Okay? Now, there's a lot of different places where love for one another shows up. Okay, we're not going to exhaust all of them, but there's a lot of different places where it shows up. And a lot of times love being shown, you know what it comes down to? It comes down to being a lot more than just about the words that you say, doesn't it? It comes down to more than just words. Love. I mean, we're all familiar with actions speaking louder than words. Well, John believed that too, even if you go back to his first letter, chapter 3, verse 18, little children, let us not love with word or with tongue, but in deed and truth. All right, so there's a doing there that has to take place if you're going to say that you love somebody. If you don't put your words to actions, hey, it's going to be real hard to convince someone that you actually love them. If you don't ever put those words to actions, it's going to be hard to convince somebody otherwise. See how well that goes over with your spouse at home. Honey, I love you. Yeah, you don't ever do the dishes though. Or you don't do your part. Right? It sends a message. Okay? Or you're never sacrificing something, that you want to do for something they want to do. Or you never put yourself on hold for something they need. It's not going to go over very well. Love is not going to be in the air at that point. Okay? So, love doesn't just speak, love acts. Love moves. Okay? It moves you to serve sometimes in different ways. Even when you're not asked to. It causes you to forgive your brethren because, hey, Jesus forgave you. It causes you to be patient and bear with someone even through their imperfections. I think about 1 Corinthians 13, all those things that Paul says about love and what it does. Okay, he gives that big long list. Love is patient and kind, right? 1 John chapter 2 and verse 10, John also says there about love, he said the one who loves his brother abides in the light, and there is no cause for stumbling in him. So even there, love says, you know what, I'm not going to do stuff that might cause my brother or sister to stumble in their walk with Christ. Okay? I love them enough to watch the things that I might say around them, especially spiritually speaking. And you know what? If they're a person that's a little bit new to the faith, hey, there may be some things that I might not bring up yet. Maybe they're not spiritually mature enough yet to handle some of those things, okay? So I might watch the conversations I get in. Anyway, that's part of what love does, okay? I don't want to confuse anybody. You can also love in that you see your brethren. If you see your brethren, we talked about this a little bit this morning. If you see your brethren sliding, right, the backsliding thing we talked about this morning, you see them drifting a little bit, maybe not being as serious with things as maybe they ought to be. Love might say, hey, let's approach them, let's get them some help. Let's see what they're struggling with. Can I help them out? That's part of what love does. Encourage them. Help them get back to their feet. Love will tell someone the truth even when it hurts. Love will sit beside somebody who is grieving. Love does a lot. Okay? Look, truth, I know we build a lot of things on truth. Truth is certainly part of the bedrock on which the church is built, but love for each other helps hold it together. Love helps hold it all together. It's not necessarily a feeling, like an infatuated feeling that you might have. It's not built on emotionalism. No, true and biblical love is seen through the actions that you take. That's what true and biblical love is. Okay? That's what speaks the loudest that says, I love you. I love you. Do you? Do you show it? It speaks volumes. It's hard. Yes, it does take effort. But we must. We must love one another in the church. We must understand that lesson. Or look, we cannot call ourselves disciples of Jesus, the one who said the command. You got to love one another. Now finally, I think one of the biggest eye-opening lessons here actually comes with what he says in verse 8. You drop down a little bit into verse 8. See to yourselves that you do not lose what we accomplished, but that you may receive a full reward. Big lesson number 4, do not let it be for nothing. Don't let it be for nothing. I don't know if our minds can completely comprehend what Jesus did, what He accomplished, what He broke down, the things that He set straight, all for us, mind you. I don't know if we can completely fathom even all the things that the apostles did and what they accomplished and the work that they put in, all trying to make sure that the doctrine of Jesus stayed pure. I mean, just go back, think about this. Look at what Paul had to endure. Look at what John did and Peter went through. I mean, many of the disciples died fighting for this stuff. They died fighting for the truth. And I don't, we've looked at some of it if you were in my AP class, but if you've read some of the early church apostolic fathers lately, I mean, many of those guys died trying to preserve what the apostles laid down, what Jesus laid down. They even were fighting for it too. Because so early on, even in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd century, right there at the beginning stages of the church, there was such an early departure already. And people were fighting for that. Hold on to what the apostles taught. That was their message, their main message, through all the heresy that was going on. And so John says, look, don't lose what we've gained. Don't let all of this be in vain. We've worked too hard to make sure that you have the truth. Those guys worked too hard to make sure we have the truth. And Jesus certainly didn't die so that we would lose it. We have the truth revealed to us right here in the pages of Scripture, and if we want our reward later, we cannot lose the truth that we have. Okay? People talk about, well, you can't lose your reward. You can't lose your salvation. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can lose it in a heartbeat. But we cannot. We cannot get carried away by teachings that aren't right. We can't get to a place to where we're not abiding in the teachings of Christ anymore. And listen, many congregations have. Many congregations of the Lord's church have walked away from the teachings of Christ. It's a sad, sad deal. We're losing a lot of congregations from that. Okay? And it's very sad, but you know what? Look what he says. Look what he says in verse 9. If you go too far and you do not abide in it anymore, what does he say? You don't have God. You don't have God. You only have God if you have and abide in the teaching of Christ, the Son of God. That's how that works. Okay, that can be true for a congregation. That can be true in an individual's life. If you get to a place to where you've gone too far as a church or in your own life to where you're not abiding in it anymore, the teachings of Christ, he says very plainly, you do not have God. That's hard words to hear. If you don't keep what Jesus taught, if you let it go, if you walk away from it, you are going to walk away from God. Don't ever walk out on God. Don't do that. Folks, we can't lose that. We cannot lose what Jesus accomplished. We cannot lose what the apostles accomplished. If we do, we lose our reward. We lose our reward, and everything will be for nothing. Don't let it be for nothing. These are the big lessons that surround really the truth that Jesus is and the truth that Jesus taught. John talked about it quite a bit. Okay, and he said a lot just right here in these few short verses. He talked about truth as being exclusive. There's just one. They didn't see it any other way. Jesus had it. It came from God. They knew He came from God. Jesus is it. He's the truth. Truth must abide in us. We've got to have that. We've got to walk in it. It's got to live in us everywhere we go. It should cause us to love one another. It should be greatly held on to and not lost. These are the big lessons we learn, even from just a small book. And if you're a Christian, I'll tell you, like I said this morning, I tell people all the time, listen, keep pressing on. If you're a Christian, here's the encouragement for all of us. Keep pressing on in the truth. Keep pressing on in the truth. Hang on to what you got. Don't lose it. Don't walk away from God. Keep Jesus' teachings in your life. Live by them. Abide in them. Keep pressing on. If you stand in need of anything tonight, now's your time to let us know. Let's stand and sing.